Your bow. So yeah, on Monday we started looking at reading files, and today we'll continue with our files, but we'll move on to writing of files rather than reading. So we'll look at two different ways of writing files. So let me just so cold today, man. Sure. Come on now. Cool. Choose this one here. Cool. So I asked you guys to have a look at writing of files on Monday. So what did you guys find out about writing to files?
Well,
yeah.
On the writing, instead of using, what is it? Oh, remember when you do the open and then you'll be editing on a file. So like if you say you open,
so yeah, so let's just recap as we move into the writing of files. So what should I give my open function in the first place? So before we can select whether we're writing or reading, what should I provide to the open function?
So you do the quotes and then you put the name of the file.
Okay, so we are still working with data.txt, right?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and then
you put a, well, if you're opening just to open it to be readable, you can leave it like that.
Okay.
Or you can do comma and then you do quotes, you do R inside.
That's to read, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so now if we want to write to files, what do we do?
You do W.
Okay, cool. So now if I go data dot read line, right? And then I just want to print that out. What's gonna happen here?
It's not gonna give you an answer because not a readable file, but you didn't choose to read it, so you can't read. I'm just not sure how it's gonna write that error.
So it gives me an error, so that's how it says it. So your unsupported operation, right? So that's what it says. Not readable. So the file is not readable, meaning I cannot read the file since I've opened the file in write mode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I can. So for me to be able to, so I can only write to this file since that's the. So this is the permissions. So here you're essentially giving it the permissions that you want. Right? You say, okay, I'm opening this file, and the permissions that I'm attaching to this operation is the W. The W meaning I can only write to the file, right? So now, so if I wanted to write something to my file, what would I do? I use the write. So here, and then I can just give it a right. So looking at, wow, okay. So I'm going to. Right. So now if I run this program, what will happen? What will happen to this file? What do you expect should happen?
Those words, some new data should appear in the text file.
Where? At the top, at the bottom?
I think at the bottom.
Okay, let's run it. Boom. Oh, look at that. All the contents of our file are gone, replaced with the new data that we wrote to our file, right? So this is because the permission W for writing to your file overrides all the contents of the file, right? So if you have something in your file, it'll override that. You get me? So when you be careful if that's not the behavior that you want. So there's another one which we'll see in a moment that allows us to add onto the file. But when you use the W, it'll overwrite the previous contents of your file. So you see that now it says 1 because I wrote 1 to the file. So yeah, so I'll just take this back so that we have we have the contents we had before. So I'm going to move quickly today because then the rest will just be research for you guys to look at in your spare time. So yeah, so for that, I think that's going to be what we're looking at for writing to the files. You should like go over more of the methods that you find on your writable file. You should see you have your write and your write lines, right, and your writable there. Let's look at writable, what that means, what that.
No, but I have a question.
Yeah,
about something. So after you did that, the code to write into the data text, right?
Yeah.
For it to write into the data text, you have to go to the terminal and run the code.
Yeah, bro.
Okay. Because I think I was saving only.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you have to run it. So you see, we have this method on our data, right? Saying it's writable, right? And then it returns a true, right? You see that? And we didn't look at readable, which is another one. So it's saying false, right? So this is how you know the permissions that you have on a file, right? So it's saying this file is not writable when you call the method on the file and it tells you the file is not writable. It's not readable, sorry. But if you check the writable one, it tells you that it's writable. So you can actually be able to know. Actually, we'll look at it just now. You'll be able to know the state of your file, even though let's say you're working with two programs, right? And then you're using code from another program, and that program supplies you a file, and you don't know whether that file is readable or writable, right? So you can actually, if you want to write to the file, you can check, is this file writable? And then if this method will tell you, the method writable will tell you, oh, this file is writable, and then you can proceed to write to the file, because you don't want to try and write to the file and then the code will have an error in it. But if you check it's writable, then you can write. Maybe if you want to read, then you can also check if it's readable. So there are other methods that there are other permissions that make your file both readable and writable. So I'm going to leave that to you for you to find out. I'll send you some notes so that you can have a look can have a look at those methods. But yeah, let's just have a quick look at the A1, which stands for append. So with this one, we can actually when it's you're giving it permission to write to a file, but it appends to the file. It does not replace what you originally had. So let me just take that back, and then I'll say data dot write. Nope, write. I'll move that from there. So now, now if I do that, you see what happened there? It added more data to my file, and if I run the program again, it keeps on writing more data, right? But this doesn't actually go to the next line. You guys see that? And if this is the behavior you want, then it's fine. But if it's not, and you wanted to write to you wanted to write the new data onto a new line, what do you guys think you would do? What would you do? What do you think would work for this? If I want more data to appear on a new line.
You put /n.
Yeah, so you put /n. So that will add a new line, add it as a new line there, onto a new line. And you can use so let's say now I want to write
Speed.
eh?
Speed.
Oh, let me do this actually. So I just want to show you a couple of escape characters. So you saw this, right? I said it should write Jack Mabaso. So obviously I'm saying you should write it onto a new line because of the \n, and then there's a \t there, and you can see that here with the \t, you can actually see this arrow here, right? Can you see it? This arrow that's within.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so this is a tab. So like if I was to press G and then tab and then A, if I was to highlight, oh this, I know why it's doing that. My VS Code is set such that when I press tab, it uses spaces, so that's why it's not showing you the same thing. But here, it used a tab. So if you wanted to tab your, your things without using a space, you could use, if you didn't want to use the space but you want to use a tab, you could use your /t there, and that will give you your tab. So I'm going to stop here with files. I'll send you guys some notes so that you can have a look at that. But I think we are going to move on to our if statements. So let's do that. Going to. It's been a while since I pushed this, man. I'll push it today. So yeah, so I don't know if you guys have heard about if statements, but I'll just explain what it does. So if statements is a control flow, and if statement is a control flow that allows us to execute some kind of instruction based on when some condition happens, right? So maybe you wanted to say if a file is writable, like we looked at now. If a file is writable, you want to write it. If it's readable, you want to read from it, right? So let's just look at the structure of an if statement. Don't mind. This is just to show you what it is. And no, man, don't do that. So don't mind the red things here. I just want to explain what this is. Come on now. Can you just leave me alone? Hey. So you use your keyword, your if, and then you have some sort of condition that you want, whether a file is writable or not. So something that will resolve into a boolean, but not. You don't have to. I'll explain why towards the end of the lesson. But most of the time, when you use your if statements, you use your if statements with things that evaluate to a boolean. So and then you have your colon there, and then you have your body, the body of your if statement. So and be mindful of this indentation here. We'll go through it just now. So let's say I have a number A, which is 5, and another number B, which is 4. So my condition, let's say I wanted to print something if A is greater than B, right? If A is greater than B, so we know that this is a condition. So the condition is A greater than B, and we know that this evaluates to what? To a true or false. It evaluates to a boolean. So we're saying if true. So if the evaluation of this is true, then the code inside the body of your if statement will be executed. Otherwise, it will not be executed. So I'll just print right. So now, do we expect this to print Yebo? Yes, we do, because 5 is greater than 4 right now. If let me just try. So now you see that was. Let me just run it again. So we see that because this condition was true, the code inside the body is executed. Now let me change this to 5 and see if the same thing happens. Nope. There. So nothing happened when I ran the code when we have A and B being the same. So because this condition is false, the code inside the body will not be executed. So let's go back to the indentation. This indentation is important because if you don't have that indentation, it means that code is not inside your if statement. So now let's just look at this. There's two things that are happening now. Well, not there's something is happening here. Like it's telling me there's an error here on this line because it said expected an indented block. This is because now the if and the print are on the same line, meaning this print is not inside the if statement, but your if statement needs to have something inside. Otherwise, it'll give you an error. It will not work. If you don't have anything inside your if statement, it will not work. Like now, I can just say something useless that we're not using. C equals to 1, right? So we have that there. So now Yebo runs because Yebo is not inside the if statement. It's outside. It's on the same level as this. So it continues with the normal flow of your program. So you check this is false. It continues to run other things outside of your program. So you can have another one there. See that? So now we have Yebo still runs because it's outside. But if I change this to 1, you see that I'm running inside the if statement, and then Yebo runs anyway. So any questions?
So like if after underneath the print, ne?
Which one?
The print Yebo,
Yeah.
you put maybe print something, another code, but you
Yeah.
indent it the same way as the one that is within the if statement.
No,
Like that.
that won't work.
Okay.
Yeah. So you indent. So there's a couple of things that you indent your code into. For now, what we have seen now is your if statement. So your if statement ends here. So there, it's done. So once you go once you remove the indentation, you start from there. That means your previous block is done. You get me? So you can't say this is in the if statement because it's after you've broken the indentation. So you started the indentation there and then you broke it. You broke it here, like on this line you broke it, right? So that means your block is from 4 to 6. You see
Okay.
that? Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. And you can't just indent your code. So Python is very strict. You need to respect indentation, right? So because indentation in Python actually has a meaning, but in other programming languages, it's just you're just using it to have your code clean or in a certain style that you prefer. But in Python, that indentation is important and it's part of the rules of the program. So you have to be careful. Or things, it's either things won't work as you expect them or things won't work. So be careful of that. Yeah. So your if statement can also go with another sort of condition. So let's look at one before we look at the other. So you can have an else block. So you can have your if, and then you can have your else. So you're saying if this is true, do this. Otherwise, do something else, right? So the same, just the similar thing with the else block. You need to have something inside. If you have your else, you need to have it there because you don't need to have an else for your a pairing else for your if statement, right? So maybe when you need to, then you can't just you need to give it a something inside the body. So like now I can't just say else and then say do nothing because I'm violating it again. So this else block this else needs a body. So I need to add something inside the body, right? So I can go print right, and then let's see what happens with this one. Boom, it says it just prints Yebo because what 5 is greater than 1. But if I change this to 5, since the condition now is 5 is not greater than 5, so it should print outside. So now it prints that one. You see that? So but the Yebo still runs again because it's outside of the if and the else blocks. Are we good?
Yeah, we are fine.
Good. So there's another one which is called your elif, which is your else if. So it means else if. So how this one works, so you have your first if, right? You can't just start with an elif, it won't work. So you can't just say here elif elif something, and then it won't work because you need a pairing if for it to work, right? So with this one here, we know that we already have an if at the top. We can have an elif there. So also with the same thing, but your elif, you need another, you need a condition like you do with your if, but it only runs if the if statement, the if block is the if condition is false. So this one will continue to be checked. So now let's say if a equals to b, right? If a equals to b, what do we want to do? So we want to and we right. So now we know a and b are the same. So if we run this, now it says we are equal, right? So now the else block did not run because there was a condition before it that was true. So this one is ignored. You see that? So you can say you check it's so the first thing that runs is say, oh, is A greater than B? And then we get A is equal to B, so this block doesn't run. So it moves on to the next one. Is A equals to B? Then yes, then it runs this one. It doesn't go to the else block because there was a true statement before it that was executed, right? And then you can have as many elifs as you want. So you can have, so now it's telling me, so it's not an error, but it's warning me. It's saying this branch duplicates the one in on line 7. So this is useless because this will never run because this block will always run before it. So now let's say we wanted to check another condition where, yeah. Right. And then now it just says we are equal. Now if I was to change a to 1, and then this is b beats a, right? Because this is false, this is false, and then that's true. And then just drag this down. Yeah. So that's how your if statements work. Any questions?
So you see, like it does this from the top. Let's say, for example,
Yep.
Let's say the first if, maybe you're comparing A and B. Let's say maybe you're saying A is less than 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the elif statement says that A is less than C, of which C maybe is 4. So both those two statements are true.
Okay, so you want where you have, so let's have C equals to 50, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not. So it's not a redundant condition because the first one is saying is A greater than B, right? And the second one you're saying you're checking if the B A equals to B, and the third one you're checking if A is less than. Oh, you mean the else bit? I agree. The second elif is not redundant. The thing that's redundant now is the else, because the else will never run because in this case, these will always, one of those three will always run, but the else will never run because those are the only three conditions that can be satisfied. Yeah, yeah. So the second elif and the else actually yeah, this is actually an else even though we use it as an elif, but mainly because of the rules of numbers. But let's say we were dealing with strings and characters, so we could have more conditions. If something is a, is someone's name is Paul, or if something else. So that's what I was just trying to show. But yes, in this case, yeah, that is the case. So yeah, Jack, your question was, you're saying if two things evaluate to true, right? So let's say here I'm saying C is greater than B, right? So we know that A is less than B, right? And C is also greater than B, right? That's what you
Yeah,
asked.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the first condition that is true will be executed. The second one will be ignored. You get that? So you'll
Okay.
only, the first condition that, because now for if this first one here is true, you will not even look at the rest of the conditions. You'll just continue. So you'll only run this and then go to the bottom of the block and then run Yebo. But if you only execute one after the other, when so you'll only execute the last one if the ones at the top are all false, right? And you'll only execute this one if these two are false, right? And you'll only execute this one if the top one is false. You get that? So the first one to be true is the one that's executed.
But what if I want to run like a condition? Let's say, for example, where you have two ifs. You know, like
Yeah.
in Excel, where you'd have like if statements, two if statements, maybe to say if A is equals to maybe the name of Paul, and if B is equals to the name of Paul, print this for A, print
So
this
you
for the.
could do one of two things, right? You could use your and, like we looked at them earlier. So you're like, if B equals to uh, Paul, right? That's what you're asking. So this is essentially one to kind of you can break it down into two if statements, but you'd have to, since you're using an and, sorry, you could do this if Paul, right? If B, and then I'll remove that and then but I'll need to move this inside there. So I have an if statement inside an if statement. So if this is true, right? Then I will proceed to check if that is true, right? You see that? Or you could just use an and at the top. So they evaluate to the same thing. But the only thing is now here, if B is not Paul, the ones at the bottom will be ignored, right? Because the if statement that pairs with them was true. This was true, so that will be ignored. But then inside your first if statement, you have another if statement, but the inner if statement is false. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen because you don't have a pairing else or pairing elif onto it, right? So yeah, but to make it, if you wanted if you wanted it to be in such a way that one of these things run at the bottom, then you'd have to, I'll just pull this back, remove that, and then use an end there. Then this is one condition. This is essentially one condition, meaning when this is false, it'll continue to evaluate the blocks after that. Understood?
No, it's still not doing what, because I think if with the end one, it will mean that both conditions must be correct for it to
Yes.
take that, right?
Yes.
But let's say for a case where you want, if A is correct, right?
Mhm.
Then it prints out something for A.
Okay.
And if B is correct, if B is equals to Paul, then it prints out something for B.
Oh,
But
I see.
then if both of them are not correct, then it doesn't print any of those things, then it goes to the else statement type of a thing.
Now, but you would so you want to do something for when when A is greater than B, and when you also want to do another thing when B equals to Paul.
Yeah, that way.
So you'd break it down in this way then, right? Uh, right. I'm gonna remove this C here. So you have this if at the top, which is independent, it doesn't have a pairing else or elif. It's alone, right? And then you started another if there, which is for if B is Paul, right? So if B is Paul, then this will happen. But if B is not Paul, then one of these at the bottom will run.
So if I still want the same elif and else for the A greater than B, then it means I'll have to copy those and put them on
But
below.
so you want these conditions to be executed both times when BA is not uh,
Yeah,
greater than B and when B is not equals to Paul. So
yeah.
you could do
Okay.
that if that's what you want. I mean, nothing is stopping you to have else. So you have your if else block there, and then you have another one there.
Okay,
You
I
could
think
do,
I get it. It's fine.
yeah,
Thanks.
cool. Yeah. So now I just want us to look at some uh, cool. Let's just look at some falsy values. So in Python, so we spoke about booleans, right? Where we spoke about things being true or false. But you don't always need conditions to use your if statements, because there are things in Python that are falsy, meaning they give you the same behavior as a false when you use your if statement. So I'll show you now. So A equals to 0, right? So if A I left A we should wait for this guy. Where did this guy go? Cool. So Jack, so we're just talking about uh falsy values in Python, right? So from what we just looked at a moment ago, we looked at conditions that evaluate to a boolean. So we don't always have to do that, right? Because there are things that in Python that evaluate to, so they are treated as a false when you use them together with your if statement. Like this thing over here. I can, let me say else is print. And come on now. Do you see that? So I ran the program and it's saying I am falsy, right? A is 0, and when you say if A, it doesn't print that, it prints that, because it's treating A as a false, as a false, right? So that's why we call 0 a falsy value. So if I was to change the value to 1 there, I will say I am. So you have your falsy values and your truthy values. So now 1, as you can see, 1 is I am truthy. And then if you look at, let's use 11, it still says I am truthy. So maybe sometimes you just want to check if a number is not 0. So instead of doing something like A is, well, did I show you the not? I did show you when I showed you the not, right? When we looked at our operators. Did I? Maybe I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, cool. So instead of doing something like if A is not, let's say if A is not 0, then do this. So you can like see it says I am true. So instead of using a condition, because you already know that if A is 0, 0 is a falsy value. So if you can just say if A, meaning if A, this is equivalent to saying if A is not 0. So you can just say if A, and then that gives you I am truly, because all numbers rather than all A, what's this? All numbers except 0 are truthy, but 0 is falsy, right? So that's one thing that's falsy. So now we can look at another one. So I can say numbers. So if an empty list is also falsy, you see that it says I am falsy. So basically anything we put there and it doesn't print this is a falsy value. So I'll show you another one, an empty tuple. An empty tuple is falsy, right? I am falsy. You see that? An empty tuple is falsy. Empty set is falsy. What else do you think should be falsy? You think an empty string is falsy or not?
Not falsy.
You think it's not falsy? Well,
Yeah.
an empty string is also falsy, right? So for now for your numbers, so we looked at the other the data types. Like these are like your sequence data types in a way. Let's look at, so for your number, I can say, let me just make this 0.0. I am falsy, and then another number which we're most likely not going to use. So this is your for complex numbers. This is also falsy, but I don't think you'll need to use complex numbers. But yeah, so just so you know, you have for your numbers, the things that are false, you have 0, which is an integer, and then you have 0.0, which is your float, and then you have your complex number, which is your 0j. Yeah, and Other things that are falsy, well, false is falsy. That's a giveaway. And another built-in constant that's falsy is I'll just call this that guy. So it's called none. So this is what some functions return nothing, right? So functions that return nothing, like if I was to print out the return of this print, right? I think I showed you this before. I showed you the. I think. So it says none. You see that? I'm printing out const, which is the result of running print, and it says none. This is because print does not return anything back for me to use. So it's a none. So your none, if I was to say if none here, if const here, you see it said I am falsy when I used const as my on my if. So that those are your falsy values. Yeah. So yeah. So everything else is truthy. So everything else, if you just want to check if. So let's say you wanted to check if a list is empty, right? So let's say okay, cool. So we have this numbers we have this numbers list there at the top, right? So if you say if numbers, so you want to, if you have numbers, then just print out the numbers, right? Otherwise, what you do is you want to append a number. You want to append 50 to that, and then print it out, right? So let's look at this. So I'm going to remove this one at the top and share that out, and then just run that. So you see that. So it added 50 to it, and then it printed it out. Now let's say we had 60 in there, right? What happens? This will just print 60, which is there because it's saying, oh, my list is not empty. So if my list is not empty, then print my list. So this saves you from doing something like, let's say, I don't think did I show you the len function before? I don't think I did that. So len, what len does is it gives you this the length of your sequence, right? So when you look when you use it on your numbers, it gives you how many on your list. It gives you how many things are in the list. Same thing here, same thing there, and same thing. So here it will tell you how many characters you have in your name. So here, so it's telling me the size, and to check if my list is not empty. So I would say if size is not equals to not equals to 0. That's how I would do it, right? But yeah, so you get your 60 there, which is the same thing. But I could, since I only want to check if the list is empty. If the list is not empty, this is equivalent to just saying if numbers, then print out the numbers. Otherwise, add a number, add 50 to it and print it out. Yeah. So that's it for your if statements, and yeah, your if statements and your truthy and falsy values. Any questions?
No, type that if the if length is 0, 1.
If, what do you mean? So you want me to do?
Or if size is unequal to 0.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Cool. Cree, are you good?
Keyboard is not working now.
I guess that's it for today then.
Okay, sure. Let's call it a night.
Yep. Cool.